This evening, we're going to talk about, there's a company called Amazon. It's a company called Amazon in the United States of America. It's a huge company, billions and billions of sales. It does, until recently, it didn't own a physical store where people could go and buy things from. Now Amazon has bought a company called Whole Foods. Whole Foods, so it's a huge, big grocery type store that sells just about everything. Tomatoes, it sells wines, beer, it sells bread, it sells prepared foods, and so on and so forth. Now, this Amazon is the one that had become a big company by enabling people to use their computer, to use their phones, and essentially avoid going into physical stores to order books, to order all manner of other things. These days you can just about buy anything from Amazon online. And you may ask, what does Amazon have to do with Ghana? What does Amazon have to do with the private sector, or with entrepreneurship, or with starting a business in Ghana? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. That what does Amazon have to do? What's the relationship? Or what's the lesson to be learned in terms of the private sector in Ghana? I'm going to talk about this in a number of different perspectives. But before I do, I want us to have a discussion on a matter that is important, that has to do with our attitude, what we think about the private sector, what we think about business people, and that attitude, it also started with the way Ghanaians, or back then Gold Coasters, dealt with the colonial authority. Many people, they'll go to work, and they went to work for the civil service back then because it gave them a job. Yes, it paid them, but what many people felt was important was that there were certain benefits, certain things that they could derive an advantage from as a result of having that job. For some people, they got a house. Some people, they got a car. Some people, they had all sorts of other things. But other people, because they could take things away from the job environment, legally, illegally, that they could benefit from having that job. So in local language, many people say that, look, so many people, they're not too concerned about the salary, but rather those things that they could take from work, legally or illegally. That attitude somehow been transferred to the private sector since we've gotten independence, well, to the public sector after independence, but also seeped into the private sector. And there is this thinking, and that is the real point I want to make. This wrongful thinking that when somebody starts a business, then it means that they are okay, they have money, that they are well off, and that is why they have money to start a business. That's not true. It is not true. But many Ghanaians don't get it. They don't understand it. So as soon as you start a business, then many people want to come and work so they can take things from the job. Some people come around because they've seen that you've started a company, so that means you have money to give to people, that you are well off, that they see a company building, or they see that, well, many people don't realize that most people, they've rented the premises, that many people, they've borrowed money from friends, from their life savings, from banks, from other companies, that they have to pay back to start the company. So many don't realize you start a company because you have a need. You have a need to we want to make a better living. For some people, they are hungry, so they start a business so they can feed themselves. Many people, they just have to make a living, feed themselves, their families, their children, send them to school, and so on and so forth. And the means of doing that is that business that they have started. Well, the cocoa seller on the corner somewhere, that cocoa seller is in the business not because they are well off. It's in business because they need to work, earn a living, make some money to take care of themselves and their families. The man who owns a carpentry shop, who has found money to buy some tools, hires some people to work with him. He's not doing that because he's well off or he's wealthy. He's doing it because he needs a job. And he's managed to find some money to buy the tools, hire some people so that all of them together can make a living. And some people start a bank. And they start a bank not because they have money to put in the bank and then relax, but because many of them, they have taken funds from so many different places. Some of them have borrowed money. Some of them have borrowed and used either their house, their properties elsewhere, whatever it is, some assets, stocks and bonds, use them as collateral to get money so they can start that bank, or so they can start that factory, or so they can do something, start a consultancy, or whatever it is that might be. So our attitude rather should be, somebody has found it necessary to start a business, so I should go and work for that person and help make this business work so that he can have some money to pay back his debt, to put back the monies that he invested, put it back where he or she took it from. And so that when things are okay, then I can also benefit. That is something, it didn't quite hit me so well as it has recently, because of what some people have said to me, have said to others, and what I've come to listen more carefully to hear from people. So please, let's understand each other. Businesses are started because people want to make a good living. And it's not because they are well off and they have nothing else to do with the monies that they have, so they start a business. And most people start a business, they start off with debt. Even if it's not debt and they got some people to buy shares in a company to start, well, everybody has put in some money. So if you're running a company that has been capitalized by selling shares to all sorts of people. Well, those people who have put monies into the company, they expect a return. They expect some profits. They expect some dividend. So when we see somebody go in, and you know, some people also on the other side, owners, don't help. Because somebody starts a company, and almost immediately the person gets a little bit of money, they buy a nice car, you know, build a nice big house, have some fancy things to wear, and so on and so forth. So they give off the wrong impression to people that, it's when you start a company, then you are okay. Many people that I know that have started companies, well, they end up having all manner of problems, including health problems, stress, inability to sleep and sleep well. And people who, they look left and right, whether somebody is protecting their assets or not, always counting, always checking, always doing this, doing that. And so, quite often, a number of them, they have heart problems, they have blood pressure problems, they have all kinds of other problems. So, you see somebody started a company, help him, help her, and let them do well, so they can release all the anxiety, all the stress, all the problems, all the debt, so they can be in a better position to share in the benefits that come from running the company. I'm going to talk about the connection between what has been happening with Amazon, the big company in the US, and owning a business, the private sector in Ghana. And that the relationship that I believe ought to be there between the Ghana private sector and our government authorities. So what am I talking about? Something interesting has been happening in the US. Amazon, this Amazon company, if you can imagine, they put out a request for proposal to cities and states in the US, seeking to get bids to this private sector company, bids from government, local authorities, state, local. And here's what Amazon is trying to do. Amazon says it is going to build a second headquarters office for Amazon. And it wants to build it somewhere in the US. And Amazon is saying that it wants to be offered land that is close enough to an airport, land that is close enough to a highway, land big enough that it would create over 50,000 jobs, and so many different things. So they have come up with their requirements. And come and see what is happening and what has been happening in the US of A. Cities, states have been running all over the place trying to prepare proposals to give to Amazon so that Amazon can consider siting this second headquarters in their city, in their states. You just imagine that for a minute. And I'm not just talking about Ghana. Well, imagine Liberia, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, Kenya, Uganda, How many of those countries could we possibly expect something like that to be happening, where a private sector company would say, well, I want to go somewhere, I want to build a factory somewhere, but you make me an offer. You, the city of Entebbe or Nairobi or Takoradi or Kumasi or Tamale, make me an offer. What are you going to give to me to make me decide to want to come there, to site my factory, to site my headquarters, to site my office there in your town or in your region? Can you imagine that happening? And today I want you to also communicate with me on this matter, because it has many implications for us all over Africa. And let me now say, what is it that the city of Chicago has been doing as a response, or in response to this Amazon's request for proposal? And here it is. The city of Chicago has written a letter to Amazon offering $2 billion in tax breaks and maybe more. And the city of Chicago has proposed 10 sites. It's gone around the city of Chicago, and it's not just proposing one site. It says, here's site 1, site 2, site 3, site 4 to 10. You can have your pick of these sites to come and locate your second headquarters. And they are trying, the mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, he is leading this fight himself, and basically saying that they want to demonstrate something that anybody else can't match, of having the potential to support this private sector company's growth. And then, not only that, the state of Illinois also, that is the region, the state of Illinois also is saying that they will back the city of Chicago's bid, and they would even add some more incentives to make it possible for Amazon to come and locate in the state of Illinois. Again, just imagine it a little bit. Just here in Ghana. Some people, when they see some private sector person, they say, he has money. As soon as that tag goes there, that he has money, or this company has money, it means, why? Why would they want anything from anybody? Why should anybody support them? Indeed, if you're a company and you don't take care, and you are asking for people to buy shares or to raise money for some project, some people say, they are broke. They are broke. That's why they are doing this. Can't understand it. They are broke. But businesses look for support. Businesses look for help. Businesses look for financing constantly to expand, to improve, to change equipment, and so on and so forth. And here we are with one of the biggest corporate entities in America saying to government entities all over the US that make me an offer. Tell me something interesting that will make it possible for me to come and site my business in your city, in your state. And I want to say to you, it is because of this competition of helping the private sector, giving them some advantages, giving them some benefits. That is how come businesses thrive in the US. And the lack of it in a place like Ghana, that is also why businesses don't do so well here, because we leave them alone. We don't make friends with them. We don't help them. We say the money is for him or for her or for the people who own the business or the ones who work there. Therefore, let them struggle and do whatever it is themselves. If they succeed, fine. If they don't succeed, well, it's from their pocket. And I remember a few years ago when I made a little bit of a complaint about one of my companies and said, well, if it doesn't work out, well, we'll shut it down. Well, some government official, senior government official, looked at me straight in the eye and said, well, how many employees? We have let go thousands of people from government entities before. So your few employees, what does it matter? Now, with an attitude like that, would the private sector thrive in this environment? Absolutely not. So I will tell you some more about this Chicago bid. I want to give you a bit more of the details so you can understand what I'm talking about. But then we'll take a break, and I want to give you the number to use. So I want to hear from you either by phone or a WhatsApp message, and the number to use 050-6565-750. The number to use to call or to send a text message, 050-6565-750. And so I want to read some of the elements of the city of Chicago's bid to Amazon. And here it is. It says that both of them see this as an extraordinary opportunity for Amazon to be somewhere within the city of Chicago, which is in the state of Illinois, and in a rare show of unity, because there's a city of Chicago. The city of Chicago sits within Cook County, and the city of Chicago and Cook County also sit within the state of Illinois. So if it was in Ghana, we would be talking about a city or a state or a municipality, metropolitan area, and a region. Okay. Now, all the heads of these three levels of government in Illinois, that is the governor, Bruce Rauner, the mayor of the city, Rahm Emanuel, then the Cook County Board President, Tony Preckwinkle, and basically the legislature, the state legislature's leaders, the politicians, have all laid out a series of tax breaks, property tax discounts, infrastructure incentives, and others. And so in a letter that the city has sent to Amazon, it says that the politicians were willing, or they had offered to spend an additional $250 million in addition to the $2 billion in incentives that they were putting there. An additional $250 million that wouldn't go to Amazon directly, but it would help to train up a workforce from which this company could hire. Can you imagine? The city, the state is going to throw in $250 million. so that this company can have its pick from a trained workforce. I still want you to see how you understand this from a Ghana perspective. From a Ghana perspective, you pick whatever private sector company you might want to think about. Let's even say that in today's Ghana, where the president has said one district, one factory, and let's say that somebody wants Group Indo wants to go and build a rice mill in Karaga in the northern region. And then the district chief executive of Karaga, the northern region minister and others, they say, well, we are going to make available, well, let's not say $250 million, but let's say 250,000 Ghana cedis. They will make it available to help train people so that the rice mill can have its pick of some well-trained, skilled workers. And if the rice mill is going to depend on the growing of rice, that perhaps the region, the northern region minister would make a proposal that, here, come and do this business here. We will help train farmers. Maybe give them some seedlings or whatever it is, so they can grow the rice that the rice mill, that factory would need. Can anybody really understand this? Can you even imagine that happening in this country? And if we can't imagine that happening in this country, how can we expect that we will be able to compete with the countries where their governments, the cities, the states, and so on and so forth, provide such big incentives for them to be able to operate and make money, and the monies that will go to private pockets? But people forget that when businesses make money and they hire a huge workforce, the workers pay taxes, payroll taxes. The businesses, when they make money, they pay taxes to government. They make, they pay property taxes. They pay tax on profits, and so on and so forth. And they make our cities, they make the regions, they make the country active and vibrant. So I want to hear your perspective on this matter. But let me say some more about what is it Amazon. One of the reasons why many people are after this is Amazon says this second headquarters, that it is going to spend $5 billion to build this huge second headquarters, where it will take orders online, where it will process the orders, where it will ship orders to wherever it is that it might go. And now Amazon is even testing using robotic means to send things anywhere, using some of the latest technologies to move products, where it can come and dump a product right in front of your house using technology, and so many other things. And so let me go through the Chicago offer again. It says the package includes $1.32 billion of tax credits to Amazon from the city and the state, $172.5 million in sales tax and utility tax exemptions from the state. Can you imagine that somebody starts a company And the government of Ghana would say that, again, let me use my own company as an example. We want to build a hotel in Wa. Now, someone might say, "Oh, Wa, it's not it's an undeveloped area for the most part. So if you build that hotel there, then for the first 5 years, what you would have paid as VAT, you wouldn't pay as an incentive so that you can go and build there." That's the kind of example I'm talking about here, where they are saying $172.5 million in sales tax and utility tax exemptions from the state, $61.4 million in property tax discounts from the county, Cook County, and the city, and then $450 million in to be determined infrastructure spending from the Illinois Department of Transportation, Chicago Department of Transportation, Chicago Transit Authority, and so on and so forth. Now imagine, and I find this, to be rather amazing because of what our group of companies, what we go through in many parts of the country. Or even what government's own factory that it is put in Comenda, even though the factory is not working, but go and take a look at the road from the Cape Coast or the Accra to Takoradi Highway, from that junction to Comenda, all the way to where the factory is, and you will see a road a bad road there, leading to the factory. So how would the raw materials go? How would the finished goods come out? And there are no street lights on that road, and so on and so forth. And that's even a state-owned factory. And then when you come to what we call at Group Nduom an industrial estate in Elmina, where we've built a factory that does takeaway packages, a printing operation, logistics operation, where we assemble television, set-top boxes, and so on and so forth. Well, the government decided to resurface the roads in Elmina, and somehow just left out the area leading to where our hotel is, the area leading to where the industrial estate is, when we happen to be the biggest taxpayers in the area, in the municipality, and even in the region, one of the biggest taxpayers. And here is somebody, a government agency, offering to spend $450 million in yet to be determined infrastructure projects. So somebody says, come to my city, come to my state, put your factory here, and we'll build a road to your factory. We'll make sure that electricity is there. We'll make sure that water is there. If you need access to a few things here and there, maybe a bus service, we'll make sure that it is there so your employees can get from town to where the factory is, and so on and so forth. Wouldn't that be wonderful if something like that were happening in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Uganda, and so on and so forth? Wouldn't that be wonderful? And wouldn't our private sector people be encouraged, be more motivated, and spend more money, invests, so that there will be more jobs, so that the governments will have more tax revenue and be able to do more? That's the point. That's the reason why we are talking about this evening, and trying to relate it to the private sector to those who create jobs, those who start companies here in Ghana and in Africa, and see whether there is any relationship there, and see whether we can learn any lessons from there. Well, there are some messages. Let me read some of the messages, a couple of them that have come. Well, the Ali Mohammed says that, good evening, the topic you are treating is very good, but in Ghana, people are jealous, greedy, witches, wizards. That is why if some people are progressing, it worries other people, because they say, how can one person own all these businesses, forgetting that when that happens, the person helps the nation to solve its unemployment deficits. That is from Ali from Techiman. Henry, a young entrepreneur, he calls himself, says, well, these are wise words by far, but how far are you, I guess he means me, how far are you willing to pursue these obvious changes that we need in our country, in Africa at large? Does it end with your show, or we will be hearing from you later on? Well, Henry, the young entrepreneur, you know that these kinds of topics, this subject that we're discussing, these are matters that are not just of interest to me, but these are matters that I'm very much so willing to continue pursuing, so that people can have the right kind of attitude towards entrepreneurs, and so that government officials would also enhance their view, change the way that they treat business owners. And just for your information, I came from a festival today, Akwentukese Festival, the people of New Drabin, the Koforidua area. And I talked about some of the same things, especially that point I made at the beginning of this program, that people must not think that when somebody starts a company, that it means that they are overflowing with cash, that they just have so much wealth and so much money that they don't know what is it that they should do with it. I also, someone by the name Koku says, good evening. Great are your thoughts as well as plans. I agree with you 100% on what you've said. We hope government agencies established to regulate private businesses learn not to perceive private sector investors as having it all, and therefore do not need support, for which they rather frustrate them. Someone says the Lands Department is taking over 3 years to register a piece of land bought to establish a business. How won't investors be frustrated? Now, someone else, Prince Sapong from Sunyani, he says, well, he says that this is the type of program that leads to the progression of his state. And he says something, and that one I don't quite understand. He says, I want to see you back in the competition. I'm not sure what kind of competition he's talking about here today. Let me go back and get back into the specifics once again before we end this program, because this time it runs by too quickly. Let me say that why the city and the state, why are they running through all of this? Well, they have realized that even where Amazon is located now in Seattle, Washington, on the west side of the United States, that it says that it has more than 8,000 jobs that it is unable to fill at the number one headquarters in Seattle. So it needs room, it needs space, it needs a place to go. Okay, and so that's why they are not moving out of where they are. They want to start another headquarters office because they've run out of space. And the city and the state, and it's not just the city of Milwaukee, the city of Chicago, or the state of Illinois. Several cities in the US and states are all scrambling, all hustling, putting proposals together, promising incentives. And remember, the city of Chicago's incentive has been valued at $2 billion. $2 billion of incentives, building infrastructure, helping train a potential workforce, providing them with other kinds of amenities, tax incentives, from sales exemptions from sales tax, exemptions from property taxes, and so on and so forth. This is how I believe many of these businesses have been built, and how come the U.S. has remained a high-performing, relatively prosperous country. And the lack of all of these things, the bad, poor attitude towards investors, towards the private sector, not just in Ghana, but in other African countries, these are some of the reasons why our businesses haven't been doing as much. And sometimes when you see a business doing well in Kenya, in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, in many of these other countries, you'd find that a lot of them have a parent somewhere else in the world outside of Africa. And they are pumping in funds and pumping in other benefits and other advantages. Some even get benefits from their home governments that they are able to utilize right here to give them advantages in Africa. So what must we do? The point I'm trying to raise here on this program today is that our governments must do more to help the private sector. Our people must do more to encourage those who invest in the private sector by helping them, helping their investments to grow, to thrive. And also by making sure that we patronize what is it that they do. I've said it here before, that when the American automobile industry went into a depression and nearly closed some of them, American government took monies from the taxpayers' pocket, invested them in their automobile companies, and they're doing better now. When insurance company AIG, when many of the big banks had problems not too long ago, the American government bailed them out. What would happen in Africa if a Dangote, if a Tony Elumelu, and so many others, if my company had a problem in Ghana, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Liberia, or anywhere else in Africa? Would anybody help me out? Would anybody help the private sector out? We do have a caller on the line. Hello and good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Yes, go ahead. Speak. We're listening.
I'm an being marketing entrepreneur, and the case study of the Amazon has been used I've been given even an assignment on it about the e-commerce business that they were involved in.
Yes.
And he was talking about the supply chain, about they offer bids to different countries so that he can get the best out of them and lower cost to the supply to the supplier supplying the
Yes.
I had wished if we would also talk about the e-business on customer relationships and then also on the product.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a good suggestion. Let me promise you this, that I will take this topic and treat it another time so we can treat it fully, since we're getting to the end of this particular program. So I will take the e-commerce, the sort of business that Amazon and others are in, and treat it as a separate program, and then we'll try and draw examples from our environment and what is it that we can also do to be successful in those same areas. So thank you for the suggestion. Let's unfortunately the time is far gone. There's someone called Romeo. He says he's a technologist. He says he has enjoyed this program, and he says, in fact, he has read about this issue involving Amazon, and had wondered if it could be replicated in Ghana. And even though we're not doing this, I actually do believe that if we put our minds to it, we can do something like this right here in Ghana, and the people in general will benefit. Reverend Asari from Tamale also says that he appreciates what we're doing. Henry from Swedro has also talked about this. There is there's a caller, I believe, is on the line. That will be our one last call. Good evening.
Good evening, Doc.
Yes, good evening. Please, let's hear you.
Doc, we thank you very much. You are an icon to me, the Queen youth. May the Almighty bless you.
Thank you.
We wait to see your progress. And the other message who was saying that they need to see in the context is that we want to see you back in 2020. I think that's what the person means. So please do not give up. We see you around Singapore and the whole country. We are proud of you and we want to see you.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And this is where we end our program this evening. There's a gentleman who wants to know how to invest. We'll also save that for another time. But do you know what this date in history means to me? If the name Justice Chebafo means anything to you, October 28th, 2016, on a Friday, that is when the High Court Justice Chebafo rendered the judgment. The judgment against the Electoral Commission and one Mrs. Charlotte Osei, when they had sought to disqualify me from the competition to become a presidential candidate. But then in the process, they messed up our campaign in any case. But it's interesting. It's interesting what the Justice Eric Chebafo said, and I want you to hear what he said to the Electoral Commission and Charlotte Osei. Says that the EC's conduct in this matter, I'm quoting him, was extremely perverse. So the words of Justice Chebafo. And he also said that the EC's explanation of a point that was being made in court was rather, quote unquote, pedestrian and peripheral, and use all sorts of other language basically to let the Electoral Commission know that they and not any other state institution should attempt to take away the freedoms and take away the rights of any citizen of this land we call Ghana. And this is where and how we end this edition of Ghana Great and Strong. And I have been your host. My name is Papa Kwesi Nduom.